Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has announced the formation of an election integrity police force, and the left suffers a total meltdown. In this video, we're going to take a look at the new police force tasked with enforcing election integrity. We're going to see how the left sees all of this as part of President Trump's coup. And stick with me to the very end of this video when I'll show you what's really going on, how it's all part of Patriots successfully taking back our nation. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Patriots all across the globe. Dr. Steve with you. Great to be with you. As always, I am your daily fake news antidote. As each and every day I provide patriotic analysis to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. If you haven't done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, you have got to get yourself one of our awesome brand new shirts. Our brand new as in Let's Go Brandon shirts, and start off the Christmas season early here. You're going to love our shirts. We got some of the best Patriot gear out there where you can pick out something that spreads hope, and you can support my channel here at the same time. So make sure to click on the link below and get your Patriot merch today. These designs are punchy, they're fun, but they're not going to stick around for much longer. So start your Christmas shopping early. Click on that link below to get one for yourself. Get one for all the Patriots in your life. They're going to absolutely love you for it. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. The amazing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is taking a bold and decisive step in guaranteeing election integrity in his state. The governor announced last week that his administration is indeed creating a fully staffed statewide law enforcement office whose sole job would be to enforce election law and crack down on any and all election crimes. It's being widely reported that Governor DeSantis is taking these measures to assuage any concerns that Florida voters may have with the integrity of the state's elections. The new law enforcement agency is part of a wider project in Florida to secure elections for the foreseeable future. In his recent press conference, DeSantis said, quote, "We are excited to say that the next legislative session, we are proposing another package of election integrity reforms that'll make Florida the #1 state for elections. I'm excited that with this legislation, our state will be able to enforce election violations, combat voter fraud, and make sure violators are held accountable. If potential violators know they will be held accountable, they will be much less likely to engage in improper conduct in the first place." So DeSantis affirmed that the new election integrity laws prohibit unsecure, haphazard drop box locations. They require timeliness for supervisors of elections to clean the voter rolls of ineligible voters. And my favorite of them all, they will once and for all outlaw ballot harvesting, which of course is the practice of using third-party volunteers to pick up and deliver ballots on behalf of voters, dumping them in unsecured election precincts in the middle of the night. So, this election police force isn't being set up in a vacuum. It's an integral part of the enforcement of the new electoral integrity laws that have been passed of late by the Republican-dominated Florida legislature. Now, needless to say, the left is utterly panicked over this, all right? They're seeing this literally as nothing more than a continuation of the January 6th so-called coup attempt by President Trump. They really do. They see election integrity reforms as nothing less than voter suppression laws, which the mainstream media so willfully parrots in their ridiculously biased so-called news coverage. The far left sees these voter suppression laws as an integral part of what they're calling a soft coup led by President Trump. Even CNN has gotten into the act. They're seeing these voter suppression efforts, as they call them, as all part of a slow motion coup being launched by Trump. Or on their better days, they, CNN, are accusing Trump of running a shadow government, a shadow presidency. Now keep in mind, this actually isn't very far off, in that shadow governments are actually all part of European parliamentary systems. Technically speaking, shadow governments, or shadow cabinets as they're called, are made up of senior officials who, while they don't have formal power, nevertheless they provide a ready-made replacement if the parliamentary coalition in government falls apart. So parliament coalitions are often multi-party, and so they can collapse, and then you need an interim government to serve until the next election. So that's technically what a shadow government or a a shadow cabinet is. So obviously here in the States, that's not supposed to happen because we're a two-party system. So there's always going to be a party in charge. You don't need a backup government. But what a number of leftist reporters are recognizing is that Trump has been doing this more or less since January 20th. He's effectively organized what's more or less a parallel government that's actively directing the policies and advocacies of the new Patriot-inspired Republican Party. And Ron DeSantis is considered one of Trump's lackeys, right? Because he's implementing precisely the kind of voter suppression that will be needed for Trump to successfully accomplish his coup in 2024. Now, this is commonplace thinking among mainstream media types and ultra-leftists all over the country. The problem with this notion, not so much the shadow government, I think that's in effect right. I think Trump really is the president of red states, at least informally. The Republican leadership is looking to Trump for leadership in the midst of the incompetent and incontinent babbling Biden administration. But in terms of a coup, I think this is something that Democrats comfort themselves with, so they don't have to face the reality that the vast majority of the nation is turning away from their far leftist lunacy. Check this out. This just came out today from Rasmussen. The newest Rasmussen poll has the Republicans leading the Democrats on a generic ballot by double digits, by 13 points, 51% to 38%. Now, if you didn't catch our first video this morning, we did a deep dive into the Washington Post ABC News poll that found a 10-point lead for Republicans in the so-called generic ballot, right? When the respondents are asked, are you going to be voting for the Republican for Congress or for the Democratic candidate for Congress? And I pointed out that a 10-point lead is beyond historic. In fact, the last time the Republicans trounced the Democrats in the midterms, 1994, 2010, 2014, generally speaking, the Democrats actually led the generic ballots. To the extent Republicans had some leads, they were generally just a few percentage points. 10%? 13%? This is absolutely unheard of. And so it begs the question, with humiliating poll numbers like this, what need is there for a coup? With Biden polling at 38%, Kamala at 28%, why does President Trump have to resort to a coup to come to power? I mean, take a look at Florida itself. For the first time in Florida's history, more Republicans are registered than Democrats. When DeSantis was first elected governor back in 2018, the Democrats had 250,000 more registered voters than Republicans. They've reversed that. Again, what's the need for a coup? It sounds like voters, not Trump, not DeSantis, voters are fully ready to overthrow the Democrats and restore the Republicans to power. Voters. The last I looked, that's not called a coup, it's called an election. And in terms of all the voter integrity laws that are getting passed, it's the same thing. Rasmussen found that 61% of likely voters agree that election reform laws are very important, especially ID requirements. Rasmussen found that it's 75% of likely voters support voter ID requirements. Or as I like to put it, 75% of likely voters support what Democrats oppose. 75% of voters support what Democrat lawmakers oppose. And that includes, by the way, 69% of black voters. Also, all the Republican gerrymandering that they're whining about that's going on all across the country, that's all but guaranteeing GOP dominance for the foreseeable future. That came about because the Republicans dominated the state legislature elections in 2020. That means they can redraw congressional districts all over the map in such a way that they may actually be poised to dominate the House for the next decade. And to make it even sweeter, Governor DeSantis is leading all of his potential Democratic challengers by double digits. These are called elections, not coups. But I think the mainstream media is going to continue to try to convince itself otherwise. All the while, Trump and the GOP are prepared to trounce them in the elections ahead. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video on Bill Maher shutting down a far leftist on critical race theory. Gang, the tide really is turning. They've even lost Bill Maher. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.